A mourning dove has been sitting in the same spot in your yard for what feels like far too long. It is not eating. It is not moving toward the feeder or away from it. It is simply present, low to the ground, feathers slightly puffed, eyes half open in a way that looks almost peaceful and almost wrong at the same time. You may have watched it for a full minute before you realized you were holding your breath, waiting for it to do something. It never did. You assumed it was sick, or resting, or perhaps waiting out some danger you couldn't see. You have probably wondered, at least once, whether something was actually wrong with the bird. Nothing is wrong. What you are looking at is one of the most specific and deliberate survival behaviors in the backyard bird world, and understanding it will change the way you read every dove that ever sits still in your yard again. Welcome back to the bird's lore. Today we're explaining exactly what a mourning dove is doing during those long, motionless stretches you've noticed in your own yard. If you've ever paused mid-task to check on a dove that wasn't moving, subscribe, because this channel exists to explain the moments your birds give you and never explain themselves. By the end of this, you'll understand not just why the dove goes still, but what that stillness tells you about how much your yard has already earned its trust. Start with the body of the bird itself, because the stillness begins there, not in its mind. A mourning dove feeds almost entirely on the ground, and it does not chew. It swallows seed whole, directly into a muscular pouch at the base of its throat, called the crop, and it keeps swallowing until that pouch is visibly distended. Researchers at Cornell Lab of Ornithology have documented mourning doves consuming as much as 20% of their body weight in seed during a single feeding session, filling the crop far past what the stomach can process in the moment. That is not a snack. That is provisioning. And a bird carrying that much weight in its throat cannot fly the way it normally flies. It cannot burst upward in the explosive, whistling takeoff mourning doves are known for, not without risk, not without cost. So it does the only other thing available to it. It stops. It goes still. It waits for the crop to empty into the digestive system before it moves through open space again. The stillness you saw was not idleness. It was a bird temporarily grounded by its own success. But the stillness itself is not passive, and this is the part most people miss entirely. While the dove sits motionless, it is not resting the way you rest. Its eyes are positioned on the sides of its head, not the front, which gives it a field of vision close to 360 degrees without turning its neck at all. A mourning dove, sitting perfectly still, is not switched off. It is running full surveillance on everything around it at once, using stillness itself as camouflage, because a body that isn't moving is a body a hawk's motion-tuned vision is less likely to lock onto. The dove has traded speed for invisibility, and it made that trade the moment its crop filled. Every second it sits there, it is choosing not moving as a form of active defense, not the absence of one. This is where the story goes back further than the moment you noticed it, because that dove did not choose your yard at random, and it did not choose to feed heavily in the open without first confirming something about the space around it. Ground foraging in mourning doves is a documented risk behavior. Birds on open ground are exposed in a way that birds in canopy cover are not, and a study published through the Journal of Animal Behavior found that ground foraging birds calibrate the amount of time they spend with head down, vulnerable, based on the perceived safety history of a specific site, built up over repeated visits. Your dove did not arrive today and immediately gorge itself into stillness. It has almost certainly been visiting, testing, watching your yard from cover before ever committing to a feeding session long enough to fill its crop completely. The bird sitting motionless in front of you today is the result of dozens of smaller, quieter decisions your yard passed before this one. Knowing this changes how you should read what you see, because not every still dove is the same dove in the same state. A dove resting after a full crop sits low, feathers relaxed and slightly puffed for warmth, eyes blinking slowly, occasionally rotating its head to scan without otherwise moving. A bird doing exactly what was just described. A dove in genuine distress holds its body differently. It sits asymmetrically, favors one side, keeps one wing slightly loose or drooped, and its breathing is visibly faster, its stillness rigid rather than settled. The difference is subtle, but learnable, and once you've watched for it, you will never confuse the two again. Most of what people worry over in their yards is the first kind. Actual injury is rarer, and looks, once you know what to look for, unmistakably different. There is also the matter of the sound, because mourning doves are named for a call that people have projected feeling onto for as long as the species has had the name, a low, breathy, five-note coo that sounds to most human ears like grief. It isn't. It's a territorial and courtship vocalization produced almost exclusively by males, and it has nothing to do with sorrow at all. But the coincidence of the name and the sound, and the bird's habit of long, motionless stillness, has built an entire folk mythology around mourning doves as omens, messengers, symbols of loss. The actual biology underneath all of that mythology is almost the opposite of mournful. A dove that stays still in your yard long enough to fill its crop completely is a dove that has judged your yard safe enough to be vulnerable in. That is not a message about loss. It is closer to the highest compliment a ground-feeding bird can pay a piece of land. Mourning doves are also monogamous, often for a full breeding season, and sometimes across several, and pairs frequently forage within sight of each other, though not always shoulder to shoulder. If you look closely the next time you see one sitting still, it is worth checking the nearby cover, a low branch, a fence line, a dense shrub, for a second dove, alert, upright, watching. Pair-bonded doves alternate vigilance, and Cornell's long-term banding data on mourning doves shows repeated pairs returning to the same nesting and feeding territories across seasons, which means the dove sitting in your yard today was very possibly raised on the calculation that this specific space, this specific yard, is where safety and food coincide reliably enough to build a life around. What changes after a dove commits to a full, motionless feeding session in your yard is durability. Site fidelity in mourning doves is strong once established, and a bird that has fed to full crop in a location without incident is a bird statistically more likely to return, more likely to bring a mate, more likely, over a season, to bring the fledged young of that pairing back to the same ground. The still dove you're watching is not a single event. It's a data point in a longer decision the bird is still making about whether your yard belongs on its map. The mourning dove is still there when you go back to the window, low in the grass, motionless, its throat still faintly distended, its eyes tracking, without its head turning at all. It has not moved, because it does not need to. Somewhere nearby, out of easy view, its mate is very possibly watching the same stretch of yard from cover, taking its turn at vigilance while the other feeds and rests. The stillness, that once looked like something might be wrong, is, now, unmistakably the opposite. A body temporarily grounded by how much it trusted this ground enough to eat from it fully. It was never a message about grief. It was closer to a small, quiet answer to a question the bird had been asking your yard for longer than you knew. Is this safe enough to be still in? The dove already answered. You just watched it happen.